Pizzeria DiLauro is one of the top-rated pizzerias in Ohio, selling over 40,000 pizzas every single year. The owner Adam and his head dough master Leo have over 35 years of combined experience, and they found a simple but unique way to create incredible pizzas that keep customers coming back, with some even saying it's the best pizza they've ever had. So in this video, we're gonna go behind the scenes to see exactly what makes their pizza so special, how you can use the same simple methods and techniques to create better pizza at home, and how for me, spending the day there honestly changed the way I think about pizza dough forever. And the first thing I needed to do was taste how good their pizzas really are to see if they're actually worth recreating. And we started with their classic cheese round pizza. As soon as I bit into it, it had a super satisfying crispness and that perfect sauce to cheese ratio. It wasn't too heavy and the cheese had that stretchy, luxurious, buttery taste. So next I had to try the white pie. However, this is one of the hardest ones to get right because a lot of the white pies you get are way too dry and bland tasting.
It's not dry at all. It's like, yeah. The crust is, again, perfect on bottom, like, got nice flavor, yeah.
But what blew me away the most were their pan pies. They make a thick Sicilian pie as well as a slightly thinner grandma, and the texture of both of them was just incredible. They had that super pillowy, marshmallow-like bite that I've been trying to achieve in my pan pizzas. So clearly, I had a lot that I could learn here. But before we got into that, I had to ask about their round pies, because I noticed they also have a very specific texture that I've been looking to achieve in my pizza. It's similar to a classic New York slice, but with a few key differences. And when asking Adam about it, he had an interesting explanation.
We opened during COVID, February 2021, so we were gonna be 100% takeout, and Neapolitan pizza doesn't really travel well. It's very wet, kind of chewy once it gets home. So we really wanted to put it in a package that wasn't exactly approaching New York, but kind of getting there. We call it East Coast inspired, not New York style, not Neapolitan, but it's just the same way you would get it on the East Coast. New York Elite is a little bit of a lower hydration, between 56 and 59% hydration, so it's a little bit of a drier dough, and they bake typically around 550 degrees. Those gas splodgets, they don't get as hot as our pizza masters get. So you're looking at an 8-9 minute bake. So when we try to hit that like New York Elite, Neapolitan, New York blend, we wanted to hit 62-63% hydration and bake a little bit shorter amount of time than New York, but longer than Neapolitan. So we bake around 625. It gives us a crispy bottom, but still a tender pizza.
So after tasting and hearing about these incredible pizzas, I had to know how they were made so that we can try to recreate them at home. And Adam was nice enough to show me their entire dough process. But of course, we had to start with the highly debated question in the pizza community, which is, do you actually need New York water to make proper New York pizza?
We use an RO system, so incorporating minerals and getting the total dissolved solids where we want them. Everybody says the water is the most important part, but no, I don't think it's the most important thing in the world. I think it's one of those things that it's water, you just need some good water.
So if it's not the water, this made me wonder if there's some sort of secret to the flour they use that gives their pizzas that crisp, East Coast inspired bite.
We like the pizza just to be a little bit more tender and less chewy. The Sir Galahad here is a medium protein content flour, so you don't get the chew from the All Trumps or the Sir Lancelot. I'm not sure what the GM equivalent is, but King Arthur's non-GMO, no bleach, no bromate. It's as artisan as it gets for this country.
So it seems like the ingredients they use aren't anything too crazy. They're actually pretty much the same things I'm using. However, for some reason, my pizzas turn out completely different. So I decided to dig a little deeper into their dough making process.
This mixer is rated for 100 pounds of flour, but we found for us that the dough comes out a lot silkier if we just make it in 50-pound batches.
So this is one thing I never thought of. It's one of those things that you only realize after lots of experience working in a pizzeria. And it made me wonder what other valuable discoveries they've made during their experimentation. So let's let Adam walk us through his complete dough making process.
We mix on low speed for about 2 minutes, and then we use the delayed oil method where we kind of drizzle the oil in, 2% oil for the batch, and then it mixes for 4 more minutes until we take it out. The mixer will automatically kick it up to high speed, and that's when we kind of drizzle in the oil there. So around 60 water to oil for a total hydration of 62 to 63. So now we're done here. You can see how kind of silky smooth it is. Get it into just a very lightly oiled bin. Just gonna let this rest for a couple hours here. We bulk roughly around 2 hours depending on temperature so that we can kind of just monitor the dough and look at it and touch it and feel it and see when it's ready to ball.
So that's all just based on feel, you don't take temperatures of the dough?
Yeah, no temperatures, nothing like that. Not very scientific, but after 3 years, we have it pretty dialed in. That little bit of 2 hour bulk kind of for us replaces the pre-ferment. You get plenty of fermentation on the dough.
But as you know, making dough is just the beginning of the process. After this comes one of the most important decisions you need to make, which can mean the difference between that perfectly balanced pizza they make here at Pizzeria DiLauro versus the crusty, thick, or overly bready pizzas that you might get elsewhere.
We do a 10-ounce dough ball for our 12-inch pies, 22 for our 18-inch pies, and then we use a 28-ounce dough ball for our Sicilians and our grandmas. We proof those individually just for about 12 hours. That's in the refrigerator. After they get balled, we do a cold ferment on those, and we start the 18-inch round pies in the colder walk-in, and they stay there for 24 hours. And then we move those to the warmer walk-in, and they stay there for another 24 to 72 hours, depending on when they get sold.
So at this point, the dough had already undergone a 2 to 3 day process, but still the majority of the work was yet to be done. Because as I was about to learn, you can use the exact same dough to make several completely different things. I mean, just listen to what Leo, the resident dough expert here, had to say.
I even make a bread with this dough. The bread that you're getting, it is made with the same dough that we make pizzas.
But after this comes one of the most important steps. It can mean the difference between a sloppy, soggy crust versus that heavenly, tender yet crisp bite.
If it's a little cooler, the dough is cold, we pull them out and let it get to the right temperature. So when we stretch a pie, we use semolina, the caputo. That's the mix that we're doing. I like to kind of have the flour and not just semolina into it. The flour underneath the crust, it will help to giving that little crispness. So when you bite into it, you don't feel that semolina in your teeth and grind it and stuff. And then we build a crust. I think the stretch is very important in this manner because you want to keep it nice and even. You don't want to have an edge that is too thick and one is too thin. So you try to get the pie very even. Our sauce is super simple. We use mulino da vino, that is kind of like a passata, and then we use a tomato magic. No spice in it except salt. That's the only ingredient we put in our sauce. We used to use San Marzano, and we found that the Mulino da Vino tomato sauce has a little bit more texture to it, and Tomato Magic adds that pulp that give that perfect mix for us. Try to keep 1 scoop of sauce, 8 ounces ladle, or cheese in a margarita gets 1.5. And we always go with Pecorino. 9 to 10 ounces of cheese. I like to go all the way to the crust. I go by eye. I grab it, and I know that I'm in between 8 to 10 ounces of cheese. But if it gets to a pie that has a lot of toppings, you don't want to put it as much because you want to balance that pizza up.
Mushrooms, olives, onions, and marinated peppers, and it's a lot of wet toppings. So if you put 10 ounces of cheese on that pie, it's going to come out a big soupy mess. A little bit less cheese gives a nice base.
And so that goes on every pie, the Reggiano?
Every pie, except for the marinara vegan, obviously.
You're baking at 625. You probably don't really time it, but how long do you typically bake for, would you say?
It's about 6 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, depending on how many pies are going through the oven. Throughout the course of the night, they'll raise the temp up a little bit and play with the top and bottom controls, but Taylor over there, he's the best. If he's not here on Friday and Saturday, we just close.
We try to cook most of our pizza nice and well done, not in on the light side, but more on the darker side, because we still want to give it that New York cook.
And when you see a pro like Leo making pizza, it looks easy. But now it was my turn, and despite having stretched thousands of pizzas during my time working at a pizzeria and running my own pop-up, I was about to realize 2 interesting techniques Leo uses that I didn't, which made all the difference in the final result. But before we get into that, we need to talk about this video's sponsor, Dave. Dave is a banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. Because as I'm sure we can all relate, you never know when unexpected expenses might come up. Whether it's car troubles, which I dealt with my fair share of with my previous car, it seemed like I had to get it repaired nearly every single month. I've also had medical bills cost way more than expected, forcing me to find room in my budget to cover them. And the last thing you want in a situation like that is to overdraft your account, which will only add to the pain that you're already facing. So that's where Dave comes in. Dave helps you get advance cash when you need it so that you can avoid situations like this. You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's Extra Cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest. Extra Cash gives you more money to buy groceries, fill the tank, and pay rent without having to wait for your next paycheck. So you can download Dave today at dave.com/CharlieAnderson. That's dave.com/CharlieAnderson. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. So thanks again to Dave for sponsoring this video, and thank you for your support. Now let's make this pizza. So even though I used the exact same dough, it didn't have that same beautifully tender texture that Leo's pizza had. And when I asked him about it, he was able to point out a few things I did differently that made the difference.
Like, I don't know if you can notice into it, but like when you give like a little bit of bigger crust into the stretch, it is like a little bit more into a chewy part. And that's why I said earlier, like the stretch has a lot to do with the pie that we make.
So to help me get it right, Leo showed me a few tricks he had up his sleeve to get the stretch perfect every single time.
You want to get in a thinner edge, so you can go thinner and there, and then push down. See that edge is thin over there, and you have a little mount in the middle that you can pull down. Then when you go out, your edge right here is little. To go like going, see the edge, look, it's thin. That's where you're gonna see that thick edge, right? See right here, that's what you want to get rid of, right? You can see into it where it's thin and where it's thin, so the edges are still thicker than the middle. So I go down and work the edge. So when you do that stretch, you can go and press those sides that's thicker into the thinner spot, so you make a nice even dough.
The thing is, these techniques only apply to round pies, so I still had to learn how they make their pan pizzas with that incredible pillowy texture I mentioned earlier. It's completely different from the round pies, despite, to my surprise, using the exact same dough. The difference begins 24 hours after the dough is mixed, when Leo takes the pan pie dough out of the cooler to start working his magic on it. And it turns out they use a very interesting method, unlike anything I had seen before.
I come in the morning every day and just grab them, put them in a pan, stretch them out a little bit with a little bit of oil, put them in a proofer for about 45 minutes and let them kind of like raise up and get easy to work with. After I stretch them, I put a little bit of tomato and sauce water on top to keep it moist so it don't dry out into the proofer. I don't know the science behind it, but to tell the truth, it always worked. I never try otherwise, just to use water into it. I don't want to change the process, so I'm gonna go put them into the combi oven to proof them, to finish it up. I could let them proof on normal room temperature, but since I don't have a lot of time on my hands, I need to speed up a little bit of the process. Instead of like 4 to 5 hours of proofing, because we're in the 68 degrees environment, it will take way longer to proof. Right now it's 115 degrees and I let it go for the first time 45 minutes. And when I see that almost double the size, I pre-bake them.
Now I used to be against pre-baking, aka par baking, because I've always found that it makes my pizza pretty dry and crusty. But after seeing how they do it at Pizzeria DiLauro, I realized that the reason I was having this problem is just because I was par baking the wrong way. So let's take a look at how they do it.
Before we bake, that's how it has to look like. So they double it. I set up the oven on 350. So this setting is basically like, it's gonna keep 70% of the moist inside the oven. That helps me way more than just throw them into a dry environment like the Pizza Master. My timer to 6 minutes. If I see that they need a little bit more cooked, I give them like another 10 to 20 seconds and they're done. When you par bake, in my opinion, they are getting a little bit more crispy and they have a little bit more structure to it. So when you hold the pie, it doesn't try to fall off or all the toppings goes on it. It won't fold on you, like even if you put 10 toppings on it.
So we've already seen how much work and thought goes into creating that perfect dough texture, but we haven't even baked the pizza yet. And when done the wrong way, it can lead to that dry, crusty texture that I often experience with my par-baked pizzas. And I've gotta say, I was pretty surprised by the method that they used here, but it actually made a ton of sense once Leo explained it to me.
So what we do, we put a little bit of oil on it so it crisps up the bottom. Put our par-baked crust. We do 8 slices of cheese. So the Sicilian, we make the marinara. The marinara sauce has the garlic, basil, onions in it, and then we saute that, olive oil, tomato magic, let it cook for an hour, then cool it down. A scoop and a half. I go almost to the crust, and then that's our cheese one.
So those get baked in the conveyor?
Yes, we used to cook them in our Pizza Master, With this, the cook is always perfect, the bottom's always perfect, all the way around.
And Leo was right. The pizzas came out perfectly baked on both top and bottom with that gooey melty cheese and that moist, tender, and pillowy center that I'm honestly still craving to this day. Which is why I'm working to recreate it at home. So you can click here to check out that video once it's uploaded. In the meantime, you can click here to see me try some of the elite pizza in New York City so you can see exactly what Adam has been referencing here. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.